Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm Sam Zagar. We're doing another YouTube reading today. We're doing something a little bit different. Let's get the body graph on the screen so I can show you. We have a Splenic Manifestor. What jumps out at me before I even look at the intake form? 3 right arrows, 6'2" profile. You guys can't see this, but this person is only 35 years old, which feels very significant for the fact that they're a 6th-line profile. This is one of the most defined throats I may have ever seen. We have 3 channels coming off of the throat and then an additional 4 hanging gates. And then I also have 2 more hanging gates that are reaching for the throat. It's a lot harder to condition this person with the channel of structuring or the channel of the alpha. Okay. A single definition manifestor. Okay, let's see what the intake form says. Are you having a problem you need help with? I'm having quite a big existential health crisis. I've worked crazy hours in a corporate environment for 10 years. I lived for my job. I ended an abusive relationship in 2018. I started having health issues in 2020. I kept pushing myself at work, got diagnosed with celiac disease after 4 years of hearing I was just stressed out. I'm also very burnt out. Even a year in, I'm still exhausted. I'm lost in terms of what to do with my life now. I realize I don't want to and can't go back to the corporate environment. It's a tough pill to swallow. I love to help people. I want to make a difference somewhere. I don't have enough energy to apply for jobs or start something by myself. There's a lot of fear in me. What if I never get better? What if I end up penniless, alone, ... Just on those words, there are 2 things I want to point out about this body graph. Gate 44, fear that the past is going to repeat itself. No actual conscious channel coming off of the spleen, so I guess I'm pointing out 3 things. And the fact that this is a 6th-line being. The first 30 years of their life were lived as a 3-2. They've only been on the roof for a couple of years. So when that gate 44 is looking back at the past that has really hurt previously, I want to remind this person that a lot of the past that hurt was a 3rd-line phase that's over. What is your biggest question? Is there something in my body graph that will help support my mental and physical health better? I like that. Very specific. Mental and physical health. Let's get better. Okay. Although that's entirely a loaded question, and honestly, that could be a question that summarizes an entire body graph reading that incorporates the design side and the personality side, or the unconscious and the conscious side, or the body and mind side in theory. So we'll look at the physical side and we'll look at the personality side. What else are you curious about? What would you say are my gifts? Yeah, I've got a 2nd line again, yeah. How can I know if it's my spleen speaking or my fear-conditioned mind? If it's a go until no, I assume quite a lot of my no's come from my mind and not the spleen. What would you say are my gifts? Okay, so that's a separate question. How can I know if it's my spleen speaking or my fear/conditioned mind? So what kind of mind do we have? We have a hope motivation mind. This is not a fear-based mind. I would be more concerned if they were supposed to have need motivation and they're like, help me with my fear-conditioned mind. I'd be like, transferred, conditioned, distorted. Let's get rid of that. But no, this is hope. So what's on the opposite side of hope? Guilt. I'm not sussing too much in the guilt category yet. I've got one more question to get through. Let's see if there's any more Easter eggs in the intake form. Anything else you need me to know? I feel like my whole identity crashed and burned in the last 2 years, and I'm having a hard time figuring out what I'm supposed to do next. Does it make sense that I sometimes just see what needs to be done to make a process work, how to fix something that's not working, like some piece of the puzzle falling into place in my head? Yes, you have inner vision. It absolutely makes sense that you just see kind of how something's supposed to come together. I think this is why I liked my previous lead role. There was problem solving and it brought a lot of satisfaction to me. Interesting word to say as a non-sacral being. I'm nitpicky with words. Always. On the other hand, I also now have a wish to learn Reiki, to write, to study human design. It's just a big mess in my head. A bit like my answers to your questions are right now. Just give me whatever advice you think is most beneficial. Okay? There were some Easter eggs in this one for sure. I have a wish to learn Reiki, to write, and perhaps to study human design. I do so many readings for projectors who are here to know the other, and for sacral beings who are here to know themselves, but the manifestor is here to know their impact. This person is asking about work. They left a job, health crisis. They're concerned that because they don't necessarily feel energized right now, that they're still in a very deep health crisis and that it's not going to lessen up and give them what they need to go get their resources. This person wants their resources. I'm going to go back to what I said about them being a 3-2 in the beginning for the first 30 years of their life. The third line theme is the material theme. I'm very curious, what were the material lessons that this person learned for the first 30 years of their life? Also, their personality south node is a 29.3. Obviously, their north node is a 0.3 as well, but the south node is more significant for the beginning part of their life, which they've gone through. So the beginning part of their life has a third line quality on it. They also have, just in general, quite a bit of 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, lots of 6. So we have lots of earlier third line themes, and now we're stepping into more of the 6th line role. They said 2018 they started to have health issues. That's 7 years ago, and they're 35. So 28, they started to have health issues. Oh, no, they ended an abusive relationship in 2018. Right before their Saturn return, 28. I also got divorced at 28. They started having health issues in 2020. There's a real good chance you were in deep, not only, I want to say recovery after 2018, but you likely didn't quite know how to do your recovery. You have a spleen that says, let it go, get rid of it. Like, get rid of the thing that's not healthy, that's not safe, that's toxic. I'm trusting that you trusted your spleen to get out of that relationship. But why get sick 2 years after ending the relationship? What were you still ignoring or taking advantage of? Cold thirst determination. You are a below body temperature food. Below body temperature food. If you want physical health and mental health, I'm going to look at the brain and the mind more than anything else. However, there's a pathway from the brain to the mind, and it's through environment and perspective. So I start with the brain. I've got a passive brain. How much do you actually respect your passive brain? I'm not thinking you have a lot going on right now because you're like, I'm super burnt out. But what is keeping you burnt out? 7 years is a long time to be like post bad relationship and sick, and like you were in a really intense job for 10 years. You didn't necessarily say when you left it. I understand that you don't have the energy to initiate right now, but this is so interesting, right? Because you are an ego manifestor, but not. You're a splenic manifestor, but the only channel in your body graph that's actually manifested is the money line. It's a very, very egoic manifestor. It's almost weird to call you a splenic manifestor because I kind of want to call you like an ego splenic manifestor, because if I don't put ego first, you don't necessarily recognize the part that makes you the manifestor. Being splenic doesn't make you a manifestor. I'm splenic and I'm a projector. I want to acknowledge the power, not so much the authority. The power comes from gate 21, which means that you don't have conscious access to where you're getting your power from, and it's one of your second line gifts. So you have a gift in taking control. which I imagine is why you liked a lot of corporate stuff. Also, being tribal, being the money line, you would have been in a leadership role in a corporate position. Now I'm also seeing logical collective. Like, this is a logical leadership. And yet, like, I'm like the manifestor, closed, repelling aura. And closed and repelling means tight, blocked off. I don't condition you the same way that you can condition me as the projector. And then repelling aura doesn't so much mean like, ew, you're gross to me. It means that you push my aura against me. You compress my own aura against me. That's what makes it closed and repelling. When you repel, ultimately, you're just pushing myself into me. And a single definition, like closed, repelling, manifestor, like, there's a lot here that should be giving the energy of like, piss off, don't bother me, get out of my way, stay out of my way. Like, I got this, I'm taking charge, I'm taking control, get out of my way. But when I put it with hope motivation, there's immediately this like softening that happens to the whole thing, because there's a reserved nature, there's a gentleness, there's a shyness. What their second line body is also like what motivates their mind. There's a quality here in like, let go and give it up to God. But giving it up to God is just symbolic of giving it up to like the higher power or the thing that's actually supposed to be responsible. If you don't have good mental health, there's a very good chance you're either distracted or transferred. Distracted's in the view. You have wanting view. So if you get distracted, you stop seeing what's missing, you stop focusing on what's missing, and you end up trying to focus on like the security, the survival, there's a lot of fear in me. What if I never get better? What if I end up penniless? A lot of what your interpretation of the fear is actually distraction in your view perspective. When you get distracted, you lose access to the cognition behind it. So when your 4 flips to the 1, we lose the quality of the second tone in your view perspective. If I really actually want you to have your wanting view, like wanting view, how do I unlock the wanting view? You better be in the kitchen's environment. How do you know you're in the kitchen's environment? A place of alchemy and diversity. If you're like, no, I love kitchens. I'm in my kitchen right now. And I'm like, yeah, are you alone? Are you often alone in your kitchen? This is not a place of alchemy and diversity. It's just a room. There's a big difference between a room and a nurturing environment. The environment is meant to nurture you. It's supposed to bring the correct forces into your life to remove disease, which is ultimately like the physical manifestation of resistance. This has been a channels conversation, but in many ways it always will come down to a 4 transformations conversation. Are we respecting the brain? Are we taking in below body temperature foods? Are we acknowledging what you're seeing? When you're like, can I see? I was like, yes, you can see. You know that you can see. I'm just here to validate that for you. You got kitchen's environment, dry. How do you feel about the humidity where you are? What's the sound quality in the environment you are? Who are you meeting? Think about that. Kitchen's dry, alchemy, diversity. You're supposed to be meeting people. When you meet the right people, what do you see? You should be focusing on what's missing. That's what should be getting your attention. But if you're distracted by like, I don't know, I'm nervous, what if, you're distracted. And if you're distracted, you won't have your hope motivation. You'll be transferred, and then you'll lose your quality of acceptance sense behind it. If you transfer and you're in your guilt and you're like, I gotta fix it. If you start just randomly being like, I just gotta take actions, I just gotta get stuff done, I don't know if that's right for you. I also can't tell you what's right for you. You're the manifestor. But you did make it my business to tell you what I can see in the chart. In many ways, you're meant to be quite alone. We don't want people interfering in your life unless they're the correct forces. So I'm going to go back to you ended a relationship in 2018 and you started having health issues in 2020 and you were diagnosed with celiac disease after 4 years of hearing that you're just stressed out, you're just stressed out. So what is happening when you're getting really stressed out that's stopping you from being able to eat and eat appropriately for your actual brain? Celiac disease is an issue with gluten. As cold thirst, you are an ingredients person, not a circumstance person. But if I think about thirst, hot thirst, cold thirst, and then I think about celiac is from gluten. Gluten is a protein that's found in wheat. Wheat is typically what we use to make breads. Breads and bread-like products are typically very dry. There's not too many cold thirst bread products. When you actually eat your cold thirst diet, there's a really good chance there's not a ton of gluten in it anyway. But there's also a very good chance that you're not celiac. Because if you genuinely were, you likely would have been diagnosed at a much younger age. There's a good chance you developed this as more than anything an immune response and an allergen response. Because you're not really trusting, or you weren't back then, at the very least, trusting yourself to be able to discern what you should and shouldn't be putting into your mouth. Which is another way of saying couldn't quite discern on what you should or shouldn't put into your body. There's a good chance if you ended an abusive relationship in 2018, what I'm saying is really hitting home. You didn't necessarily have a good sense of judgment on what and or who you should be bringing into your life and your body. You've dealt with that. That was years ago. But do you trust yourself more yet? You lost a lot of trust with yourself, with this relationship, with the health, with the job. That's why we have the question of, like, what if I never get better? What if I end up penniless? What if I can't survive? What if the past repeats itself? What if the problem just happens again? Of course, as someone who historically had more 3 energy to them, this is going to be a concern for you. But I do want to remind you that you're a 6 now. You are detached. You are separate from what happened. You genuinely are not even the same person. You're letting go of all of the things that weren't healthy for you. You're also going to need to start bringing some things, not back, but I think the time for letting go in many ways is over. I think you let a lot of things go. Now you have this general question of like, but what do I bring back? What do I grab? What do I go get? Which is a great question for a manifestor because you actually can. You actually can just go get the thing. I love to help people. It's so interesting. I've got an individual channel, a tribal channel, a collective channel. I've got a very well-rounded person here in terms of how they want to live out their purpose. You want to make a difference. It's so interesting. When people say, I want to make a difference, let me give this back to you a little bit differently. Can you make the difference by being the difference? Can you just have your impact by being different, by being impactful? And is there an impact that you're afraid to have? That's a big question. You brought up a lot of fear, but I don't actually think you're that fearful. So I'll ask you a fear-based question. Is there an impact you're afraid to have? Is there an impact that you're desperate to have? Is there an impact that you hope to have? This was a very interesting one. I hope that some of the things that I hope some of the things I shared with you helped. On to the next one.